Buckingham Palace by A.A.Milne, 1882 to 1956. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. Alice is marrying one of the guard. A soldier's life is terribly hard, says Alice. They're changing the guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. We saw a guard in a sentry-box. One of the sergeants looks after their socks, says Alice. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. We looked for the king, but he never came. Well, God take care of him all the same, says Alice. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. They've great big parties inside the grounds. I wouldn't be king for £100, says Alice. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. A face looked out, but it wasn't the king's. He's much too busy assigning things, says Alice. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. Do you think the king knows all about me? Sure to, dear, but it's time for tea, says Alice. Okay, this poem is by A.A.Milne. And let's see, A.A.Milne was best known for Paddington Bear. Let's see, he came from London, from actually Kilburn. He was born in Henley House, which was a school in Kilburn. And actually, when he was young, one of his teachers was H.G. Wells, the science fiction writer. He then went to Westminster School and then to Trinity College, Cambridge. Okay, so this poem is about Buckingham Palace and Christopher Robin. Now, Christopher Robin is A.A.Milne's son. Yeah, Christopher Robin. A.A.Milne had a son, and his name was Christopher Robin. And your next question is going to be, so who's Alice? I'm certain that Alice is Christopher Robin's nanny. She's the person that looks after him. Yeah, and I think they regularly go to Buckingham Palace to look at them changing the guard. Yeah, if you notice, every stanza starts with they're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. And this is the beginning of every stanza, and it gives some stability to it, and I think it also gives the idea that this is something that Christopher Robin and Alice do quite often, and it's something they enjoy doing together. I guess they probably take the bus down from Kilburn and go to Buckingham Palace to see the changing of the guard. And as I said, Alice, I'm certain, is Christopher Robin's nanny. So Alice is marrying one of the guard. A soldier's life is terribly hard, says Alice. So Alice has some interest in this because apparently she's going to marry one of the guards at Buckingham Palace. Yeah, and she says that the life of a soldier is very difficult. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. We saw a guard in a sentry box. So this is something you can still see today, the guards in the sentry boxes outside Buckingham Palace. One of the sergeants looks after their socks, says Alice. So I think this is probably something that her boyfriend, her beau, has told her, that one of the sergeants looks after the socks of the guards. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. We looked for the king, but he never came. Well, God take care of him all the same, says Alice. So they hoped that they could see the king. Yeah. So here the king, I think, is probably George the Fifth or George the Sixth. I think it's probably George the Fifth. But he never came. And then Alice is very patriotic and says, well, God take care of him all the same. So God save the king. So Alice is clearly very patriotic, very traditional. Yeah? So they wanted to see the king, but he never appeared. They're hoping to see him. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. They've great big parties inside the grounds. I wouldn't be king for £100, says Alice. So, yeah, they have great big parties inside Buckingham Palace. The Queen, or the King, has great big garden parties. And then Alice says she doesn't want to be king. She wouldn't want to be king because she wouldn't have any life to herself. And she doesn't like the idea of being king. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. A face looked out, but it wasn't the king's. He's much too busy assigning things, said Alice. So clearly here they're still looking for the king, hoping they can see the king. And a face looked out of Buckingham Palace, and they noticed, but unfortunately it wasn't the king's face. And then Alice says, well, he's too busy signing documents. Yeah, is signing documents an important thing to do? I don't know, not really, I suppose. I think maybe this is a little bit ironic. Yeah, that a king, what he has to do is sign things. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. Do you think the king knows all about me? This is Christopher Robin asking. Sure to, dear. But it's time for tea. So I think here Christopher Robin is saying, do you think the king knows about me? And I think this is the question of what is the role of a king? And I think to a little boy like Christopher Robin, a king is sort of like a god, somebody omniscient, who knows about absolutely everything and everybody, like a magic Santa Claus. And Alice says, he's sure to know about you. But it's time for tea. It's time to go home. It's time for us to go home and have our tea. Come on, let's go. It's time for tea. So, enough. If you enjoyed the video, give it a rating, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you soon. Bye for now. Buckingham Palace by Alexander Milne, A.A.Milne.